The poet, the rocker, the Phil Lynott story.
How can I leave the town that brings me down, that has no jobs, is blessed by God, Dublin?
Little girl in blue, she carries a secret, a child she carries in her womb.
I make my money writing songs about you. It's my claim to fame.
Hey, good-looking female, come here.
I remember Paris in '49. The Champs-Élysées, Saint-Michel, and old Beaujolais wine.
His body was riddled with a disease not known to man, so he expected no cure. But he was lost, insane.
The stage is bare, and I'm standing here. They might as well bring the curtain down. I cried the night the king died.
On the 4th of January 1986, Philip Paris Lynott became another victim of rock and roll excess. But unlike many, his image and legacy live on.
Remember those golden days, we used to walk hand in hand. I was your friend, your fool, your lover. I was your man.
Distilling Phil Lynott's life story into an hour is as much of an enigma as the man himself. Was he the godfather of Irish rock, or was he the poet of his generation? Was he the ultimate party animal, or a family guy? Was it Lynott or Lynott? Short answer, all of the above. The long answer begins shortly after the end of World War II in West Bromwich in the West Midlands. Phil Lynott's mother, Philomena.
In 1947, I left Ireland because Ireland was a very, very poor country then. There was no jobs in Ireland. I went with the flow of immigrants. I was 17 years of age then, and I ended up with a baby, and I was battered and beaten and thrown into workhouses. There was 18 unmarried mothers in that workhouse, and I was the one that got battered and beaten by everybody, the nuns, the women who were in there for the same reason as I was, because they'd had a baby out of wedlock. But I was the only one with the black baby, so I was a piece of dirt.
I love your big eyes, baby face. They seem to suggest much more than you say.
Every Wednesday afternoon they used to allow you out of the place to go down the village. A half a day, that's all you had. On the afternoon they would display the babies out on the lawns and have people coming who wanted to adopt babies. And I came back one day and there was some people staring into Philip's cot. And I said to somebody, why are those people staring at Philip? And one of the women said, don't you know, you fool, the only way you get out of this prison is when your baby goes for adoption.
Do I make myself clear?
I went to have a bath, and I'd opened a little window to let the steam out, and I heard a girl saying, I will not do that job. Let the mother of the nigger do the job. I don't know how I got dressed, but I ended up out in the laundry where I worked. And it seems this nun was trying to get this girl to do my job. And, of course, it was such a belittling job. There was no way she was doing it. So I went out and I gave her a punch for calling my child. It was the first time I'd heard him called a nigger. And then didn't the nun batter me? So in the end, I battered the two of them. And the end of the story was they told me to go down to the church and ask God to forgive me. So I went in the church and started screaming at the altar. I was beginning to wake up. The awakening was coming to me, the cruelty in the world and stuff like that.
And the workhouse authorities had even more cruelty in store.
Those papers in front of you, Philomena, sign them. And then you can go home back to Ireland. Now, I hadn't told my parents that I had a baby. And I hadn't told my sisters, I had told nobody. And I said, well, what have I got to sign? And they said, like, Philip, we found some people who will adopt Philip. I said, no. I said, he's not a pound note or a piece of wood that I can just give away. And I jumped up, ran out of the room, ran up to the nursery, grabbed Philip, and I didn't know where to run. But when I looked, they were all coming up the stairs after me, so I ran to the top of the house to the fire escape. And they thought I was going to commit suicide.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here.
I had been told by one of the women that if I was 18, they couldn't take my baby off me. And you wouldn't believe it. The next day I was 18. So I knew then I was safe if I got through the night. Philip's father was in the Air Force. He said to me, why didn't you tell me? And I said, sure, I didn't know where you'd gone. I thought you just abandoned me. And he said, no. When they found out I was associating with a white girl, they shipped me out, and they'd shipped him off to London.
Outside the window, the neon flashes in the morning light. Down on the sidewalk, there's a woman with a problem she don't know how to fight. She's destitute and broken down. She softly whispers, is there no one around? And no one hears the sound. Her knees give way and hit the ground. This is the toughest street in town. This is the toughest street around. This is the toughest street in town. This is the toughest.
So I said to him, the only way I can get out of here is if somebody could find me lodgings. So he found me lodgings, and I went to live on the lodgings. They were horrendous, but he'd found them, and he had to tell the people like that the baby was black, and it would have to be an area where black people associated, because in those days on all the boarding houses around the country was no Irish, no blacks, and no dogs.
This is the toughest. Don't you go down.
If the privations of a West Midlands workhouse weren't enough for the young Philomena and baby Philip to bear, they now had to face the prospect of judgmental Catholic post-war Dublin.
I wrote to my mother, and I sent her a picture of Philip sitting on my lap, and I wrote, dear Mammy, this is the hardest letter I've ever had to write. This is a picture of me and my son, who is 3 months old. But when my mother opened the letter, she looked at the picture first, and she says to my sister, oh, look at our Philomena with the lovely little black baby. And then she read the letter and collapsed. I told my mother everything. I told my mother how the landlady was taking all that money off me. And I said, Mammy, if you look after him for me, I'll send you the money. So my mother agreed to raise Philip, but she had to tell the neighbours. He belonged to an African lady. I don't know what she told the neighbours, but I know a few of them didn't believe her.
So while Philomena toiled away in England, Phil began his life as a unique Dubliner, and the role of black country rock god was left to Ozzy Osbourne. Long-term friend and fellow band member Gary Moore.
Yeah, Phil grew up in Crumlin in Dublin with his grandmother.
Long-term fan of Phil Lynott, Daniel Ryan of The Thrills.
He seemed to be very proud to be Irish. He said, when I'm in England, I'm from Ireland, and when I'm in Ireland, I'm from Dublin. When I'm in Dublin, I'm from Crumlin, and when I'm in Crumlin, I'm from... And he used to say wherever the street he lived, and I thought that was really cool.
It was a kind of funny situation for anybody who kind of hung out with Phil or worked with him at that time, because he didn't really like bringing you in the house when his grandmother was there. I think he was kind of embarrassed about the whole rock and roll thing maybe, or whatever. And he was very, very protective towards his grandmother.